Welcome into the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show live on the Better Sports Network. I am Eric Balkman from the FFPC, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour in the Rotoviz High Stakes Lowdown, and we are live tonight for 2 full hours. Hi, how are you? Welcome to May 2nd, 2024 FFPC rookie drafts getting ready to go underway in less than 48 hours as they will kick off on Saturday. So excited to have you aboard tonight. Before I introduce my co-host, want to remind everybody the 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship is live at myffpc.com, a $1 million grand prize in a $6 million plus prize pool there. Just go to myffpc.com to play that, as well as the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, $200,000 grand prize last year. It's a $300,000 grand prize, so make sure you're checking that out. Empire Leagues, Dynasty Startups, also available at myffpc.com. Shout out to our producer, Matt Deutsch. Pleased to welcome back onto the show. You know him, you love him from Fantasy Pros, as I already mentioned. The NFL Draft college football analyst for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. You follow him on the X at Thorku. It is Thor Nystrom. Thor, welcome aboard, man.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. It was cool of ESPN right there to send out an alert too that we're live. That was really nice of them. But yeah, it's good to be with you. Excited to chop it up about some draft prospects. We had a really interesting day, interesting night a week ago. This time, interesting decisions, but excited to chop it up with you about it.
So it's always fun talking with you about this. Are you sort of like what's your schedule like now? I mean, are you finally getting to exhale? Because I know this is a big, arduous process, given how closely you follow college football in the fall, and then obviously leading up to the NFL draft.
Yeah, it's pushing the boulder up for sure in the months, in advance of that, getting your take on all the different guys, watching their cut-ups and they're going through their analytical profiles. And then you get to the point where you're comfortable stacking the position groups, the rankings there. And then when you're done with all them, then it's the 500 board, which for me is usually about a week before the draft, and submit that and you're feeling good about that. But then, you got the gauntlet of all the spots and all the talking and all that sort of stuff in advance of the draft and the shows you do during it. And usually for me, it's about a week afterwards where it's like, you call it the car wash, where it's like, yeah. But it's, like obviously I've been following these guys for years and years and years, and then got deeper into them this spring. So I'm bubbling with takes. So it's like, just get rid of them all in that week after. And then I sleep for about a month. And then after I come out of hibernation, I go back to my corner of the world in college football, which is where I'm most comfortable. That's the game that I'm obsessed with.
And we're going to pick your brain as much as we can tonight. Thor is going to be with us for the first hour. Alan Seslowsky from Rotowire will join us for hour number 2 tonight. But it is a rookie-heavy show. And obviously, I checked out a lot of the stuff, a lot of the content that you produce, not only for Fantasy Pros, but obviously at Thorku on X as well. And I think you have an interesting viewpoint on a lot of players tonight. And I want to kick things off with wide receivers here in the first segment. In the second segment, we'll get more into the running backs. But to kick things off, let's talk about Brian Thomas Jr. So much has been said about those top 3 guys. I want to start focusing on some of these guys that, maybe got a little bit lesser run in the pre-draft process because we didn't know they were going to land. Now we know where they've landed, and Brian Thomas has landed with Jacksonville. Your thoughts on what you saw with him in college? Is he ultimately just going to be a complimentary wide receiver 2 at the next level, or is he going to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, Thor?
So with his evaluation, he's for sure going to be at least the former of what you just. At least you get the top prototypical wide receiver 2 guy with the in the crazy dimensions with the athleticism and the 4.3 wheels. That's the minimum. He destroyed the SEC last year doing that as the number 2 for Nabers, obviously in that high flying system they have with Jaden Daniels. He has the dimensions to do it. He has the ball skills to do it. That's yada yada. The thing with the other one is it's a total unknown because he had one of the funniest whether it's film or you look at the charting, just look at the data of like percentage of routes. It was like he ran 3 routes all season. It's like 40%, 30. 30, right? Like it's, that's the way the usage was. Could he become a wide receiver 1? It's theoretical. He was not used. His usage was so heavily funneled into the downtown stuff that we don't know. And sometimes he would do the slants, you keep him off it, but primarily that downtown stuff. So we know he can do that. But the wide receiver one stuff, he has the athleticism, he has that package, but we just haven't seen it. So that's a total theoretical thing. But yeah, I mean, you have the high floor with Brian Thomas for sure. And just because we didn't see a lot, you had freaking Malik Nabers. And then like you had, Daniels and the running utility, and like there was mouths to feed there. Brian Thomas, his best thing for that offense was forcing the defense to keep a safety back on that side of the field. And you can't spy Jaden. You can't keep more guys around the middle of the field, the intermediate for Nabers' machinations, zipping around and all that. You're going to bring that to the NFL for sure. The rest of it, we'll just have to see because they didn't use them that way.
I think, and the other thing too, like with Thomas, I don't know if you hit on this. I'm sure you did in your pre-draft process. But you mentioned Daniels. You mentioned the presence of Nabers. Yeah, there are a lot of mouths to feed there, but sometimes I think part of the reason that LSU offense was so explosive is you couldn't really focus all your attention on any one player there because Daniels would kill you both in the pocket and outside the pocket, obviously with his legs. And then Nabers was opposite Thomas too. I think that goes in a lot of that is Thomas could be very good, but was he a product of the other guys around him too, Thor?
I wouldn't put it that way. I think he was a good fit for it because of that downtown ability, and that provides a spacing problem. Jaden Daniels' game itself provides a spacing problem. And when you got the two spacing problems there, and then you have one of the most devastating movement type receivers we've seen who doesn't drop any balls and Nabers, and then he's got the yak ability. That's why that thing became the greatest show on turf. They had a rancid defense too, so it was super fun because then they'd score real quick. Then the opposing offense didn't really matter who they were playing. They would go through the LSU defense like Swiss cheese, and 7-7. Now they're coming back the other way, and so we got all these really wild shootouts. Let's just say Thor he was able to buy some goodies after the season just with Iowa unders, LSU overs. It's like every week it was like the auto bet or whatever. But no, I mean like his utility, it was valuable. Like I think even Jaden Daniels and Malik Nabers would say this is of like, we're good and we independently we're good. But like Brian Thomas's skill set itself, it forced that you have to keep the safety back. If we didn't have that guy, the spacing would have gotten constricted. Now all of a sudden you potentially, if you don't have anyone dangerous that, as far as the pop the top thing, now we can do a single high safety. Now we can spy Daniels. We're taking away Daniels walks into the NFL. He's going to be one of the 5 best scramblers that we've ever seen at that position. Well, take it away now because we can spy you, right? Like every single play. But you couldn't do that with Brian Thomas. So like that's a part of the value that like fantasy owners don't want to hear it because it's hidden value as far as from the box score. But that's another reason that you bring him in to your offense because you have to respect that long ball.
Speaking of the long ball, let's go to Kansas City. They drafted Xavier Worthy with the 28th overall pick in the draft, fastest guy at the combine. Let me pose this question to you: how consistent does a guy like Xavier Worthy have to be? Which we think, oh, he's a super fast guy. He's gonna be the lid lifter. Patrick Mahomes has the speed of Tyreek Hill back in this offense. How consistent does he have to be on a week-to-week basis to be an every week fantasy starter for you this year?
I mean, you want the targets going that way. As long as he cracks his starting lineup, I think he's in play for that. We'll have to see what happens with Rice. I think Sky Moore gets flicked aside there. And then Hollywood initially, it's funny that Worthy gets to play with Hollywood right away because their games are fairly similar. So he has a sort of mentor as far as that goes. I comp Worthy to Deshaun Jackson. But like with Worthy, I think where Mahomes going to like it. Remember when Mahomes told management to go and draft Clyde, which turns out, Pat, maybe you stick to quarterback and we'll stick to picking because we do pretty good when it's our decisions. But, I think the whole thing was, when the defense, speaking of spacing issues, when the defense had started to be like, this was like early on in Pat Mahomes' career, they're like, we're not going to keep letting you destroy us downfield. So they started to play the 2 high safeties on him. And so then it was like, okay, well, I'll just beat you with paper cuts. Well, then he started to, look, I think that was sort of the attraction to like a guy like Clyde and some of those guys. Well, with Worthy, I think that's where especially initially, the utility there is getting him the ball short and intermediate, hit him on the hands, and then give him in space and let him use the jets that way. The one thing that I don't care about his build. We see now at this point, it's like every friggin' year someone comes in who's 165 pounds and they're an absolute killer. I don't care about that. The thing that I don't want to say concerned, but the thing he needs to work on, or the playing time and the usage could get a little bit wonkier for him, is the ball skills. There was just too many drops at Texas. Now he got a metric ton of targets. He was by far the wide receiver one there. Quinn Ewers was obsessed with throwing the ball his way, but there was a lot of flubs. There were some that were concentration based, and then there were some where he would start to do the thing of trapping the ball against he wanted to do that as opposed to putting the hands out. And I saw him extend the hands out several occasions where the ball would clang off his hand. So I don't know what's going on there, but that's the thing where you got to work on that thing. If everything else is there, he's electric. He will get separation. It's not just from the athleticism. He's a great route runner as well. So if they can clean up the hands thing, but yeah, I mean, he's going to get on the field right away. I mean, you're not going to keep that electricity out the field, and he's going to get the target. So people in PPR, I think in particular, initially year one, those are the guys that are looking at Worthy in fantasy.
Interesting. That is very interesting, because I don't think a lot of people think about it. Xavier Worthy, a speed demon in that sense. And we'll see what happens again if he does crack the starting lineup, first round receiver. You'd think he would, but we'll find that out in August or September. Ricky Pearsall was also drafted in the first round, a surprise maybe not a first round surprise. I think you alluded to that. That many people were surprised that he made it up to the 31st overall pick to San Francisco. How does he fit in there, and why should we not underestimate a player of his ilk playing with Brock Purdy alongside those two receivers in Ayuk and Samuel, at least for now, Thor?
Yeah, Pearsall's a stud. He was 32 on my board, so it wasn't a surprise to me that the 49ers were big fans of him. And as long as one of those two receivers, either one of them was fine. One of them goes, Pearsall, it's wheels up right away. If you have both of them, and then you have Kittle, and then you have C-Mac, and that's where it's like, for me initially, even though, being Ricky Pearsall's biggest fanboy, I think initially, just because of the constitution of it, there's only so many balls that can go in the air. But if one of those two, whether it's Debo, whether it's Ayuk, you get one of those guys out, that's where we got immediate wheels up, I think, for Ricky Pearsall. I don't know what you question about the guy. Is he the X number one? No, but I think he's the number two. And it's really hard to stick with him. He's creating the separation. Has maybe the best hands in this class. Certainly the best reel of highlight catches. His catch against Charlotte is one of the three best I've ever seen in my lifetime. I don't think I can put anything above the Jefferson one. I might put the Charlotte catch at Pearsall's over Odell Beckham. But certainly in college, nothing close. Because Pearsall did it one-handed, and then he got freaking blasted. It was like he did that, and then he ran into a brick wall right after that. Somehow held onto the ball. But it's not just the highlight reel stuff. He doesn't flub anything. Very good route runner. Was licking everyone down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and then he goes to Indianapolis. And this is what really, for me at that point, is like, I don't know what question you'd have. Tested as a 99 percentile athlete, the full gamut of tests, including jumping out of the building. So he's been a wide receiver one past 3 years. Jaden Daniels going back 2021 at Arizona State, Anthony Richardson the next year at Florida, then Graham Mertz last year. He's been doing this for a long time. He got caught in a couple bad passing environments. His last year with Daniels, that was the year where like Daniels is in the tank. Like people thought that like Daniels, like you might have to find another vocation, Jaden. That 2021 season, Jaden Daniels as a thrower was like, people didn't think Jaden Daniels was going to win the LSU starting job in 2022 when he transferred there. And then, obviously things turned around. Brian Kelly did a really good job, but keep all that context in mind with Ricky Pearsall. He was a clear wide receiver one, whether that team reached him last year. Everything else checks the boxes with him. I'm super bullish, especially with the landing spot. Again, with the caveat being one of them two guys got to get traded out before it's true wheels up, because they just have too many studs there.
What about, so then what happens if they don't trade those two and they go into the season, Thor? with Ayuk, with Samuel, and Pearsall. I mean, are these guys going to, and you mentioned Kittle and McCaffrey too, and that's 5 really talented pass catchers. Are they just going to cannibalize each other for fantasy, or is there one guy, specifically with the receivers, that might stand out? Or do we just have to wait until 2025 for Pearsall?
He's going to get on the field for sure. But yeah, like then you're in the, what, 5th option, at least from the get. I mean, what are they going to throwing the ball to him over Ayuk and Samuel? I mean, like, or Kittle. And you have to get McCaffrey his design looks and everything like that, because he's the best at that. So that's what it's no indictment of Pearsall's talent. I love his talent, but it's like when you're the 5th guy, 5th option, and even if you're really good, it'd be like on an all-star team in the NBA, right? Like the 5th option is like, okay, maybe I'm not going to get my points. That's what it would sort of be like there. But all that needs to happen is the trading of one of those 2 other guys, because then you stop, and now you're in that crazy advantageous. Then to me, the situation flips where it's like all of a sudden, it's like before, how am I going to get targets, to now you step into what is one of the most advantageous situations for any receiver in football. You're playing across from one stud, whichever stud remains there. And then the defense has to pay the attention that way. You got to pay attention to Mr. Kittle. You have to pay attention to C-Mac. They have their fullback fella. Every time I just love watching that team, because they go into the huddle, and every time they come out, it's like you shuffle the deck, and then you don't know where the players are going to go. They just like disperse, and it's like, like if I was a defender, like every play would like hurt my brain. It's like where like it's like, wait a second, can we just hold on a second? I got to see where everyone's lined up, and then we can. That's just how they do it. And Pearsall is another guy in the vein of the versatility, inside outside versatility. It's what he did his entire college career. Again, playing with 2 quarterbacks there as a wide receiver 1 that went in the top 5 overall. So yeah, I mean, he's a fit there for sure, but you need to move ahead of you to start getting those targets. And if it happens this offseason, it's going to happen right away. If it doesn't happen this offseason, you might have to wait 1 year, but people will see. Ricky Pearsall is a friggin' stud.
A guy that the Carolina Panthers hope is a stud is Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette was drafted by the Panthers. They traded up 1 spot essentially to get him, so they'd be able to extend him that 5th-year option. Whether that was smart or not, I'll leave that.
It wasn't.
I was just going to say, or you can weigh in on this, because I think you have certain feelings on it. The major concern I had with Legette coming into the draft is this is a guy that I didn't really see do a whole lot up until 2023. And then it was, one of these 5th-year breakouts where he just crushed everybody in the SEC. Dabo Swinney from Clemson was calling him a superstar after Clemson played South Carolina. Am I wrong to be concerned about the 5th-year breakout? How concerned are you about that now that he's going to be in Carolina, ostensibly as probably the number 1 receiver?
Yeah, so I had this stat in my write-up, which is crazy, vis-a-vis this, where he became the first dude to even go in the top 3 rounds since Velus Jones, who did not have I forgot what the cutoff was, 500-yard season, first 4 years on campus. Like it was something like that. And you look at that and it's like, oh man, that's kind of scary. The difference for me though was when Velus Jones came out, I thought he sucked. People out there, you look at my write-up of that decision afterwards. It was like, what are you guys doing? Whereas with Legette, there's both circumstantial, contextual things that explain why it was late for him. Number 1, and then the skill set is just so much better with Legette as well. So I think, in terms of that. But the things that I like about Legette in terms of that situation, I'm not going to argue with anyone that's like the risk is too high for me because of that context. But the thing that I'll say about him is modern day college football, basically anyone transfers at that point. You're not sitting around for 4 years becoming the special teams guy, the getting the water bottle, the I'll clean up the stadium afterward guy. Like that's what he was. He was like the I'll do anything guy, and he's on all these different special teams things. And he was the really good athlete all along, but the receiving stuff just had not come along yet. And this past year, I mean, he was in some ways, I don't want to say helped out because he would have been a starter either way. But there was this exodus of skill talent at South Carolina where it was like, It's just Xavier Legette now. It's like for Spencer Rattler or Xavier Legette or Pray for Rain. He steps into the starting lineup, and he had at that point at least developed, whether you want to argue, 2 or 3 high quality pitches by that point. And before that, how many did he have? Well, we don't know, because we don't have footage from South Carolina's practices the first 4 years. We didn't get a long look at him on the field. But my supposition would be the route running was real bad at that point. And the thing that you get with him now, he can go north-south. He has the frame that it reminds me a little. I had to comp him to David Boss and do a shout out blast from the past, kind of a comp for him. He has those dimensions, and then the speed to go with it, the athleticism with it. He can go downtown with it. But the thing that, going back to the pitch thing, if that's your fastball, getting north-south and then being able to make the play downfield, he's got a changeup off it, which is and I got to see this up close in Mobile. It's something nice. The first day in Mobile, I don't know if people will remember this or if they were following along at the time. Xavier Legette had a terrible first day of Senior Bowl practice, and people were ripping him online, and he was bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but the thing he was trying to do on day one on Tuesday, he was trying to blow past everyone and only do he just wanted to hit dingers. He just wanted to throw his fastball the whole time. And so the cornerbacks, it was straightforward. On Wednesday, it was the total opposite. He was dang near uncoverable because he started to do the whole big, or at least the 3 tricks he's got. But off of that fastball, the thing that I love about his game is he's one of those rare big guys where he can be going full speed and then screech to a halt, come back. And it's like it's free separation every single time because he's so big and he's so fast when he gets going. You have to be going full bore with him, and he can just put the brakes on right away and then come screaming back. And he has the other thing I'll say for him is I like the outbreaking stuff towards the sidelines. He has a knack, at least for the efficiency of the foot. He's not a joystick agility guy. Like he's the north-south, so that's it's fastball, changeup, but he has that slight breaking pitch where he at least has the efficiency into that route break with the footwork, and then very fluid with the seeing the ball and catching it near the sidelines. He's comfortable with that, keeping the feet in. So you have those. The other one he does, it's just it's not even, I don't even really consider it a route. It's just a thing across the middle, hit him on the hands and just try to get him into space. But like those are that's what the usage right now, but you have the high level athleticism. You have the skills with the hands. I like the work ethic on that kid. I mean, you saw those first 4 years as the special team guy and just grinding. He finally figured it out enough with the route running and the skills as a receiver where he could at least present these 3 or 4, however you want to say it, high quality pitches to defenders. And he don't need more than that. He's not he doesn't need to be running the full route tree. He got the three high quality pitches. That's all he's going to need in the NFL to at least be a starter for a long time. And we'll see where it goes from there.
So year one, you're kind of tempering expectations a little bit, but maybe year 2, we could see signs of an alpha number 1.
Potentially. Yeah. Year 1, he's going to start. Jonathan Mingo stinks. Jonathan Mingo. It's not just that Jonathan Mingo had his spot taken by Xavier Legette. I think Jonathan Mingo doesn't need to be concerned by the first round pick. He needs to be concerned. He needs to be looking behind him at the UDFA. They got Jalen Coker, who I think is going to be coming up faster behind Jonathan Mingo than Jonathan Mingo realizes in camp. If you want to get the deep sleepers, that would be my top one with the skill guys is Jalen Coker. I think that kid's good. And Mingo better pick it up. Mingo's starting position was taken the second that card was submitted, but he's got more problems than that. They added a couple. I mean, Coker is way off the beaten track, and obviously he went undrafted, but he's got some skills as well. And when you're Jonathan, I don't think Jonathan, like I ranked him as a late 3rd rounder last year, like on my board, whatever. And I was probably being generous based on his game film from college. The world sort of lost its mind. Obviously, the Panthers did with the testing, but yeah, Mingo needs to watch out. He's going to be on the roster next year, but yeah, like if you don't pick it up, it might not be too much longer after that.
I think one of the other things too is well, let's move on and talk Buffalo here because they let go of they traded Stephon Diggs. They let Gabe Davis get to Jacksonville. They did sign Curtis Samuel, And then they kept trading back and trading back and trading back. They got their guy at 33 in Keon Coleman out of Florida State by way of Michigan State. And Josh Allen, I think I saw a quote like Allen told Coleman, like, you're the guy I wanted here. Let's go. He is going to be competing for targets in Buffalo with, again, the aforementioned Curtis Samuel. Obviously, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox are still there as well. But Keon Coleman looks like the highest ceiling wide receiver Buffalo has. How do you see his development going? Fast, slow, medium pace before he is Josh Allen's alpha number one target on what should be one of the highest profile, most explosive offenses in the NFL?
In pretty short order, Keon Coleman is a guy who, with receivers in particular, you need the right landing spot for some of these guys, especially the guys whose game is like so specific to a specific thing. And that was certainly Keon Coleman. I don't know that Keon Coleman could have picked a better landing spot. That's his spot. Like what he is. And I've seen people like trying to put him in the slot and talking about him like that. No. He's a boundary guy. And because his best usage, it's hitting the long ball. That's going downfield, climb the ladder. He's going to go up and get it because for him, it's, like at the combine, it was like 4.61 and, people don't see him separating. They're like, he's a bum athlete. He was playing on the basketball team at Michigan State for Tom Izzo a couple years ago. The kid's a stud athlete. Now, does he create separation? No, but he doesn't care to create separation because at his other sport, which he had to give up a couple years ago, basketball, you don't get to rebound balls with no bodies around you. He seems to be more comfortable knowing where that dude is. Like he wants to, it's like when you wake up, when you're like, it's probably a crass metaphor, but when you're like going to the bathroom and now you sort of have to feel your way, like the lights are off. He wants to know where that dude is behind him, right? Mm-hmm. Like before he goes up and for the positioning purposes, a box you out, he ain't getting higher than Keon Coleman. The guy leaps out of the gym. He's big. That's just what he does. And the ball skills with it. It's just a rebound at that point. And Josh Allen, like I said, perfect stylistic matchup. When they get the one-on-one shots, Josh Allen going to rear the thing back, and we're going to find out if the opposing defense has someone who can jump higher than Keon Coleman. Good luck. The rest of it, I don't know about that. Like I said, if you don't get any separation, the intermediate stuff, you need to. It's sort of like I was talking about with Legette, with the whether it's the slants or the lazy drags or stuff like that. If you can get them on the hands, where you scheme the attention of a defense another way, then you can hit them on the hands in space and give them the opportunity to turn up into grass. Yeah, that's where he can gobble up some yak for you. People will find his game fun in these instances because Keon Coleman will hurdle. He's one of those he'll hurdle the defender when he goes low, which again is harkening back to the pogo stick on the basketball court. Like he's just he's springy. Like he's not the world class. He's not Xavier Worthy, but he's very, very springy. So yeah, he's going to be, you're looking at this receiving core of all these bums. Justin Shorter, bum. Matt Collins, bum. Curtis Samuel has to be spoon-fed targets like out of a Gerber thing, whatever. They don't have a real dude that goes out there and wins. That's Keon Coleman. And yes, Josh Allen's going to be targeting the ball there. He's going to gobble up yards downfield.
The last two picks of the first round and the first two picks of the second round were all wide receivers. We saw similar to what we saw in 2022. We saw 4 receivers go with 4 consecutive picks. We've already talked about Worthy, Pearsall, and Legette. We've already talked about Pearsall, Legette, and Coleman. The one guy we haven't talked about is Ladd McConkey. And Ladd McConkey was a guy I kind of liked heading in, like prior to the NFL draft. I thought that this guy was going to be a pretty good pro. He lands in Los Angeles, where they don't have Mike Williams, they don't have Keenan Allen, they don't have Gerald Everett, they don't have Austin Eckler anymore. They still do have Justin Herbert. Is he actually going to be the lead receiver this year? Like when we look at the totals at the end of the year, is he going to outproduce guys like Josh Palmer, guys like Quentin Johnston? Ladd McConkey's landing spot, Thor, I love this for him in Los Angeles.
Totally agree. And yes, in my opinion, he was the wide receiver one of that team when it was one of those. They turned in the car, Ladd McConkey, you're the wide receiver one. People remember the Michigan title team from last year, the role that Roman Wilson played on that. That's Ladd McConkey to this Charger team, except, you see him, I suppose with Roman, because it was the 12 personnel, in the NFL, Roman got to play in the slot. But, there's the point I wanted to make about Ladd McConkey. People think he is slot. He played in the 12 personnel offense in Georgia, and it was 80% on the boundary over his career. 2 of the last 3 seasons, they won the national title. What Ladd McConkey does, it separate. He separates on every single friggin' play. You can't stay with that dude. It's with other guys, it's like, oh, the route running and he's a great route runner. Yeah, the mechanics of it are great and the efficiency and everything like that. And he's a good athlete. He proved that. But his movement, it's a little bit different. Like when sometimes you have to see these guys up close, and that's why I love going down to Mobile. His movement style, it makes it even harder. It's the only way I can describe it. It reminded me of a jet ski. Like as a kid in Minnesota, I was up north and we had a jet ski, and like you're gliding, you're going at high speeds, but then you can throttle it back whenever you want, and then you can go left to right, whip the thing around. Mm-hmm. It's what he's like. He's so smooth, but he can throttle it back when he wants, and he can go. That's just his movement style, and sometimes it will lull you to sleep because he's like going the same speed, then all of a sudden he throttles, and it just. He's always screwing with the heads of the defenders because he can constantly do that. It's like the kid in your car who's got the volume knob, but he's just flicking it, and you're getting so annoyed. You don't know where that volume knob's going next. That's Ladd McConkey. In the Jim Harbaugh offense, it's run on the early downs, as anyone who listened to any of the J.J. McCarthy discourse this spring knows well by now, even if you didn't watch that team. You run on the early downs. Well, you need the quarterback and you need one reliable receiver to be killers on third down. Because if you can't do the thing with devolve really quickly, which is conveniently something that the JJ haters never brought up, that if he wasn't an absolute world destroyer on third downs, that you take the pin out from the middle of the circus tent on that entire team. They need a guy, Jim Harbaugh, bringing the same system to the NFL. You need the guy because why do you have that strategy? Well, it's so we can chip away. So then it's third and manageable every single time. Right. We don't want to be in 3rd and 15, right? 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Okay. If it didn't work out, but 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, ideally, maybe even 3rd and 3. You need the guy who's going to get open, and then the quarterback who is going to hit him on the hands no matter what the defense throws you. And that's Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is going to catch so many first downs next year. He might lead the league in first downs caught on third down for the Chargers next year, because it's going to certainly not going to be going to Mr. Quentin Johnson.
Right.
Quentin Johnson's just going to get the occasional let's try to do the dinger thing. At least they'll be using them correctly this time on the one side. But yeah, that's going to be the constitution of that offense this year.
PPR leagues be paying attention to McConkey. This is it's just a perfect marriage for me. This is the exact type of landing spot I was hoping he'd go to. And now he'll probably cost more in rookie drafts, but that's the price of paying poker. I want to combine two questions here for you because I think they're very related. Given what we think the rookie draft capital is going to be, would you rather have Javon Baker over Jalen Polk if you're going to be picking a New England Patriots wide receiver? And to tack onto that, why would it be a mistake for anybody to sleep on Jalen McMillan now that he's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer? So a couple of Washington Husky receiver questions here for you.
Yeah, so definitely on the first one, Javon Baker is better than Jalen Polk. The only reason that people don't think so is because Jalen McMillan, we have a lot of, it's like who's on first in this one, but because Jalen McMillan got injured in September, which is the reason that Jalen Polk for the first time got to go from his usual afterthought wide receiver 3 role on that offense to wide receiver 2 for a little bit. And he had 4 to 5 good games there in procession when McMillan was out. Then by the end of the season, again, during their run to the championship game to play the aforementioned fighting Harbaughs in Michigan, Jalen Polk went back onto the milk carton where he came from. 2 of the games down the stretch there, he had 0 catches, even though he was healthy and active. McMillan had come back by the end of the season, but McMillan was struggling with his knee injury the entire time. But a word about Javon Baker quick. Javon Baker's way better than people think. And the reason that the NFL dropped him lower, it has more to do with you've already seen the comments starting to come out with Javon Baker. He's a colorful cat who is uber confident in his ability. He ardently believes that he is the best wide receiver in this class, and he doesn't understand why we don't see it that way. He doesn't get it. That's just what he thinks. And the way that he talks and expresses himself, it can come off as off-putting to some people. Some of his antics can come off as off-putting. Like last year against Oklahoma, he blows the kiss on the long touchdown at the sideline. But what people forget about that touchdown was at the end of the first half. It was responding to an Oklahoma touchdown that had just occurred before that. It kept UCF close heading into halftime. Why is that important? UCF in that game was a 22.5-point underdog. I know this because I was watching live because I had tickets on UCF, both the with plus points and the money line. So I was glued in, and Javon Baker was locked in. That was vintage Javon Baker. He was licking the Oklahoma corners all game long, and that blowing the kiss. He was telling, we ain't going away. You're gonna have to deal with me this entire game. So they went into halftime. The game was close. UCF ended up a failed 2-point conversion away at the end of regulation from forcing overtime in that game. Oklahoma was undefeated at that time. UCF was having a nightmare season. I think they were 2-4. Something like that. That's why they were such a big underdog. But that's Javon Baker. Like he is, he's the barking dog. Like he's got that dog in him, but like he wants you to know, like I'm that dude. And he wanted Oklahoma to know at that time. And he's already said some things after he got drafted. I don't even know if I could repeat some of them, but it's his attitude, like his personality. I don't think, and I know people that know Javon and have spent a lot of time with Javon. I don't, and this is what they've spent the time with. I was just around him for a brief time at the Senior, so what do I know? But this is from them. Not a bad kid. It's the way that he comes across to people is because of this. And when the situation is right for him, or whatever at the end, the next level, I think that's where he plays way up. The thing where it could go the other way is if it's not. So that's what we'll have to see. But it reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs coming out of Maryland. As far as the personality goes, same thing. Yeah, it gets filtered down the board. Stephon Diggs he was barking that entire time. Why do you have all these bums going ahead of me? I'll lick every single one of these guys. Put me out on the field with them. I'll show you. And he was right. And Javon Baker, we're about to find out, but I'm pretty confident that Javon Baker is right on that one. That he's going to end up being, these guys that were drafted ahead of him, including the guy they took in the early second round. He's better than that kid, and he's better than a lot of the guys that went ahead of him. So hopefully he doesn't tick the coaching staff off with a tirade about give me the ball more, whatever. But yeah, just to finish off the Polk and McMillan thing, I got to do my drive-by on Polk before. So just some stats to put on this. The 20. I'm pulling up the numbers right now, so I don't say this off memory because I'm gonna butcher it. I got to go to my other one. So the 20 games in Washington over the last 2 seasons where both Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan were on the field together, healthy for all 60 minutes. 20 games over the last 2 years. These were their stats in those games. Jalen Polk had 68 catches for 1,210 yards, 9 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, 124 catches, 1,657 yards, 14 touchdowns. In 2022, the usage between Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze was the thing. It was basically the same. McMillan got he was out of the slot, and they would pound him with targets. And Odunze got to do the outside stuff and the different kind of usage. But in the aggregate, the catch number, the touchdown number, the yards number, it's all pretty close for those two guys. Jalen Polk was way, way back in the distance, and he was playing. He was the third guy who was out there. It's just Kalen DeBoer, the best offensive mind that arguably that we have in college football, wasn't sending the ball to the other two guys, and Michael Penix was sending the ball to the other two guys. And then that's the way it started out in September. And then you had the thing with Jalen McMillan's knee injury in September, which opened the door for Polk to come in conveniently when they were in a stretch of these crappy Pac-12 defenses, and he got to light them a couple of those ones up. And like I said, later on, McMillan comes back and Polk recedes right back to where he came from. Polk got advantage from playing opposite Rome Odunze, but it wasn't really able to take advantage of it until they could no longer throw to McMillan. Jalen McMillan is better than Jalen Polk. Baker is better than Polk. We could be here for a little bit if I list off all the guys that are better than Jalen Polk. Yeah, in this draft class. If McMillan hadn't gotten injured last year, Polk probably does not. It's like it's 5th round or later. It just is what it is. I'm not super high on Mr. Polk.
The last receiver I want to talk with you about, and I know we're up against it, but I think it's important to bring up Adonai Mitchell because I think looking at what you have said about A.D. Mitchell, now he's an Indianapolis Colt. I think you're a little bit different than a lot of the other analysts out there. Can you tell us a little bit about why you see his game a little bit differently?
Yeah, because it was all spring. People were like, I was arguing with all these people that were like, oh, he's a top 15, he's a top 10, overall prospect, and he's a guy who's projects as a potential wide receiver one superstar at the NFL level, as long as you can assume some risk, right? So it's like, risk it for the biscuit. It was the way they were trying to sort of depict Mitchell, and it's like, no, that's not it at all. It's the inverse of that. It's not the boom or bust, or like, however you say it. With Mitchell, it was the lower ceiling, high floor. Mitchell is going to be the same thing in the NFL that he was in college. And this is the thing that frustrated people. So get ready. Although the NFL just tipped, I think the public off to this as far as, the way that they see him, but he hits dingers. That's it. But it's the straight line thing. And by the way, with the straight line thing, he needs a runway ahead of him. We were just talking about Jalen Polk, and I think we brought up Coker before that. Yep. Those guys ran it was a 4.53, 4.56. Mr. Mitchell ran a 4.33, I believe. Those three guys had the exact same 10-yard split. A.D. Mitchell needs that runway in front of him. Once you get past that 10 yards, that's where he really starts galloping. That's why you need a deep safety on his side of the field. Part of the value he brings to an offense, right? It's like the Brian Thomas thing. You have to keep the safety back, and that opens up spacing. And he will hit dingers if you don't, or if you make a mistake in the coverage. You can make the plays downfield for sure. The other stuff, why was he so inconsistent? Why 7 games last year for Texas in this really awesome passing environment? Did he have 35 yards or less? Why did Georgia not seem to even though they were coming off 2 national titles, whatever it was, why did they not really seem to care when he walked out the door? Well, the efficiency stuff, it's not really there. And then the other thing is the thing you heard on social media, like of the loafing and stuff, like, it's true. When the concept's going to the other side, he'll right off the line. Like, he's just like, he doesn't care, right? Like, he's just going to come jogging off the line at best. There was some other stuff in that Bob McGinn guy's piece, put in by some scouts that about the personality and stuff. I'm not sure that I appreciated some of the conflations that were made to his medical condition vis-a-vis that, but I do know that the personality and some of that stuff, like that is a thing. I don't think I would tie it to that. You can just be people just call me an a-hole. It doesn't have to be in association with anything else, but like that's, with A.D. Mitchell, that's what you're getting. And I think with the Colts, where the price point they took him out was perfectly acceptable, and they have that role for him, right? I mean, A.D. Mitchell just walks in there, and with Alec Pierce, he just flicks him out of the way. Bye-bye, Alec. And I'm taking that pop the top thing. That's what it is. I'm going to be the wide receiver 2, pop the top. And we got Josh Downs in the slot. We got our wide receiver 1 on the other side. That's what it is.
And you got a healthy quarterback, hopefully, this year with Anthony Richardson for 17 games as well.
For sure.
We got through a lot of receivers. We have not touched running backs. Here's what we'll do. We'll take a quick break. Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros, Eric Balkman from the FFPC. We're talking rookie running backs here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network right after this.
Is Dynasty. And the place to play is myffpc.com. Go to myffpc, use promo code COOP. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. Now is the time to get in there and get set up with a startup draft. Now is the time, now that the rookies and everyone are set, because you can go in and you can start the draft, and you draft your Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases. And now that we know where the rookies are and where they're landing, you get going on that. So you want to try and set a startup draft for this week coming up if you're not involved yet. So go get involved. Use the QR code here, or use the promo code that's in the link in the description here, and get yourself going on Dynasty so you can really enjoy these players and draft the players you believe in. If you like Michael Penix Jr., you got to play Dynasty because you got to wait for him, but the payoff is big. And same with like Pearsall and Jackson Smith and Jigba and all these guys. Get in and do that. And I'll tell you what, the orphan leagues over there that we've been talking about, those all got bought up. They're actually all sold. People from this show I know took over a bunch of them. So right now, startups is the way to go. That's the way to rock and roll. It is startup season. Startup season and rookie draft season. That's what's up. Get set up at myffpc.com. use promo code COOP. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more and give you a leg up. No dealing with chasing around your friends and making them pay dues and having your buddy be like, oh, dude, I got to quit the league because I got a dog and I can't pay attention no more and I don't want to do trades. Forget all that. You can play online, my FFPC, high stakes, low stakes, whatever you want to do with experts. And if somebody leaves the league, it goes in that orphan pool and somebody picks it up. The league has never been disbanded on FFPC.com. That's directly from Eric Balkman over there. Has told me that. So that's what's up. Get set up.
The 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship is live, a $1 million grand prize and a $6 million prize pool. Just go ahead and register right now at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. We got a few drafts going on tonight if you want to draft live. Otherwise, plenty of slow drafts going on as well at myffpc.com. 13 minutes until the top of the hour. Eric Balkman here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, being joined by Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros tonight. We got into a lot of great stuff with receivers in the first segment. I want to talk about a few running backs. I'm going to be very selective here in who I talk about because I know time is of the essence. Let's talk about Trey Benson first. He goes to Arizona. He's the second running back off the board. They take him in the third round, towards the top of the third round. Arizona grabs their new running back. Why was this such a great pick for the Cardinals, Thor?
Because they needed a running back, and that, in my opinion, they got the best one in the class. And James Conner, you are no longer the undisputed RB1 there. Trey Benson coming to take your job, my man, and it's going to come pretty quick. 2022, Trey Benson breaks the PFF record for a single season missed forced tackle rate. And in that season became the first running back to ever do it in college for PFF above 50%. No one had ever crossed that threshold before Trey Benson that season. You have the thing of, to get into the second level, he has that tackle breaking thing. He has the one cut deal. You get out there, he's going to break the arm tackle. Once he gets out into space, that's where it gets fun because he has the 4.39 wheels at 216 pounds and he can become the battering ram. You try to go low on him. It's not joystick agility, but when he gets moving like that, he's got that speed to power thing, and he better get off the train tracks. I mean, you better know what you're doing when you approach that guy because he starts getting down real fast. The other thing with him is he has the utility to play all three downs. He has an all three down skill set. It's just Mike Norvell going back to Memphis. He loves the platoon guy. Mike Norvell loves his little platoons. But at least the one thing that Norvell's system afforded Trey Benson is, you recall, go back to Memphis, Antonio Gibson, Tony Pollard, you can toss out, the different guys that they had in that. When he had the multi-purpose weapon, they would, shift him out into the slot. You'd have a couple guys out there in front. The quarterback gets the ball. That dude steps back. You whip the ball over there. Now he's got a couple blockers. Trey Benson got the respect of being used thusly by Norvell. And the other part of his receiving utility that I like, that probably more translatable to the NFL game, is the in the play action. I love the way that Benson, he sells the play. Like, it's like, I got the ball. He sells it. But then he'll go to the line of scrimmage. Those first 2-3 steps, it's like he like I said, like he has the ball. Everything looks the same. But then he picks his way through garbage after that, gets around, and then he quickly makes himself available to the quarterback. So it's like on both ends of it, he sells it. And then, when he doesn't have to sell anymore, now he navigates through, he knows what he's doing, gets in and makes himself available to the quarterback, and he'll get targets that way. He's also a better pass blocker than people, I think then was discussed. So he was a guy that, because of the Norvell platoon, he didn't get to stay on the field every single game. They pull guys on the series. It's like, you get one series, you get one series. But in the NFL, you absolutely can do that. And James Conner better. I hope he's out there doing his runs on the beaches and stadium steps right now, because he's gonna need it.
The Tour de Stade, James Conner, get on it right now, because and maybe that's one of those things. Competition makes everybody better. A rising tide raises all ships. Maybe Conner and Benson both have good seasons this year, but I always like to say it's a young man's game, and certainly Benson has the inside track there. I want to Let's talk about MarShawn Lloyd here. I should have Debro on, right? Derek Brown talking with you and him going back and forth. We've heard that a ton on your podcast. But MarShawn Lloyd, his the talent is there, but the fit in Green Bay is a little bit weird. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Lloyd and Debro, it's like his RB1, and then he kept telling me all spring, like, you're too low on him, you're too low. And it's like, no, I'm actually just realistic, because Lloyd could also, there's the risk profile, which I feel like he absolutely could be RB1, but there's the risk profile, and I sort of cut the middle in going with RB4 on him in my ranking. But MarShawn Lloyd over his career never played on passing downs at either of the two USCs that he played at. That was one way that his touches, or the playing time, got mitigated a little bit, and then he would get nicked up as well. I like his skill set as a runner a whole heck of a lot. That's what Debro and I see the same. But the passing downs, that was weird to me. He has to stink as a pass blocker, or else they would have let him do it. The receiving thing is sort of a black box. We didn't get to see him as much when we talked to him down in Mobile. He was talking about, I want to show people that I can do this, and he looked good at it down there. But that's something where, again, you weren't being used that way. You play with some good offensive coaches. I don't know. We'll just have to see about that. But the whole point being, on early downs as the runner, that is where he's. There's no argument. That's what he's awesome at. He's a very good athlete. He runs hard. He has the agility. He breaks tackles. I like lateral agility. He has all that stuff that I like. He bounces it outside a little bit too much, but outside of that, we're nitpicking a little bit. But that's the thing where, early on, it's that's where I would have loved if he went to Buffalo with Ray Davis, right? Well, actually, maybe he can steal some of that early down stuff from James Cook, who was going to remain on the field for the passing down stuff. But if it had been more of a thing like that, I don't know, in the Green Bay situation where you're walking in and it's Jacobs and then it's AJ Dillon, and you're definitely not playing on passing downs because you never did in college. You have to beat out those two guys for the early down carry looks. That's where that thing gets hairy. I was just confused by that pick. Not a good landing spot.
Let's talk about Chris Lude is in the YouTube chat right now. He says he's interested in the Tracy guy in New York. He only has Singletary to deal with. Why do we need to be paying attention to him? And look, Thor, you're probably sick about talking about him at this point, but maybe not, because you love this player quite a bit.
No, I appreciate the question, because I love Tyrone Tracy, and I do think that he is maybe not the short-term threat to Singletary, because the one thing with Tracy, he didn't blow up as the running back till last year. I do think you bring him in and you just sort of see. I don't think that they're going to rush him with that. I do think he's going to be returning right away. His game, and last year, he took at least one ball back to the house. His first year doing it for Purdue, I think his game translates really well to that new kickoff rule where it's the zone runs. But that's his game. I have in my notes, bouncy, juiced up, wide base slasher. And for me, the thing that impressed me, for this guy, had been at Iowa for the receiver for several years before that. And I was not expecting the vision and the instincts that I saw from Tracy. What he runs with a bit of tempo, which for a guy new to the position, again, not expecting. And then he has that knack for, and this I actually saw as the receiver, where it's the two guys descending on him, and he has the really violent cut where it's he's here, now he's that away, and it's this Frogger thing. Now he just disappears the other way, and in this way, that's how he can, where it's I'm dead to rights, but now there's only wide open grass in front of me, in that split second. He has that thing, and then he has the jets, 4.48 wheels at a threshold size with him. A hair over 5'11", 209, 98th percentile athlete in the aggregate. Former wide receiver. The Purdue coaching staff was dopey last year. They wouldn't let their quarterback throw downfield. Their passing concepts to the running backs were always telegraphed and straightforward. So that he didn't get to show as much of that, but he played receiver beforehand. He's going to know how, they'll work with him on that. I'm not concerned about that. But the rate with which Tyrone Tracy accrued the explosive runs and broke the tackles was just super impressive. The numbers on that: 163.5 elusive rating, 4.44 yards after contact per attempt. Both of those numbers were tops amongst my top 30 ranked running backs in this draft class. He's a sleeper for sure. He's going to get on the field initially, special teams for sure, but he's also going to get on the field behind Motor, I think. And they could he could pretty quickly justify to the Giants, like maybe move on for Motor in one of these years coming up, because I could take over.
I want to get to this other question here too. I know our time is running out here. Bill Hollywood chimed in the YouTube chat. Kimani Vidal, I'm going to be looking into, and I think we can be bold with Vidal, right? Running with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. It's a good spot for him too, right, Thor?
For sure. Yeah, he found the perfect landing spot. He is in the same physical package as Blake Corum, who, of course, is Jim Harbaugh's boy for Michigan, and now is Harbaugh got preempted by McVay, obviously, the couple of rounds before, but Harbaugh ends up taking Vidal in round 6, and it's a great situation and what is a great offense for running backs for fantasy purposes, as we know. We were talking about this before. It's the run on the early downs, and whoever is the lead back in that is going to accrue numbers. We know this. I think Kimani Vidal upsets J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards to start as a rookie in that run-first offense. Jim Harbaugh has a type at running back. Kimani Vidal is it. He doesn't play exactly the same as Corum, but with Corum, he's more patient, the tempo, and then the agility. Whereas Vidal it's north-south, it's bullet train, and then he's converting the speed to power, breaks tackles. Last year, Kimani Vidal was number 2 in the FBS in forced missed tackles, which is the same thing leaving college as the guy I comped him to. Jalen Warren was number 2 in the FBS in forced missed tackles his last year at Oklahoma State. I think that there's some stylistic similarities there. Vidal is also arguably the best pass blocking running back in this class. Going to help him stay on the field on passing downs. And I think he's a better receiver than people are giving him credit for. He caught around 20 balls all 4 years at Troy, but their offense, it wasn't like they would give him the ball in the early downs. Then it was, come on, you're an awesome pass blocker, and we'll let our noodle arm quarterback, do the sideline to sideline thing because you got us close to the chains. I mean, that's how they did it. But Vidal looked pretty good as a receiver down in Mobile, and good on those 80-some career catches that he had at Troy. So he's better than people think. I knew the NFL was going to sleep on him, because of the dimensions, because he's coming up from Troy, but he found the right landing spot, and to me, that's your sleeper for next year for fantasy.
I know we've been talking a lot of running backs, but anytime there's an Iowa tight end, we probably should talk about him. Erick All, is he the second best tight end in this class? And we keep talking landing spot. This was a really good one for him in Cincinnati too.
Oh, smash. Yeah. I mean, we've been begging for Cincinnati to address that position a real way, like a legitimate receiving tight end. And they're like, okay, we got you guys. We'll get the post-hype sleeper, Irv Smith Jr. Or they were doing stuff like that every year. It's like, no, do the real thing. No more of these half measures or even less than that. And they finally did one where it will be a full measure as long as Erick All's body is up to it. That's the only thing. He would have been my tight end 2 in this class with a bullet if there wasn't the medical questions. He had the neck thing, the back thing at Michigan, and then goes to Iowa. He was able to play right away, and he was great at the beginning of the season, but then he tears his ACL after it was a 5-6 games. But, again, great till then. The Iowa coaching staff, they know a thing or two about tight ends. They had identified him to put slot right into the Sam Laporta role. He played in line there after at Michigan. He was moving around more in the Colson Loveland role for those familiar from last year's title team. So 2 tight end factories, did 2 different things, 2 different very respected coaches there. He's an awesome athlete. We put out on Twitter one clip of him out racing Kalen King to the end zone from 50 yards out. Kalen King ran a 4.51, 4.52 at his pro day. I think Erick All, if he had been healthy, at worst, it's 4.5 flat, but I'm pretty friggin' sure he would have been running in the 4.4s, mid to high 4.4s. And then he's really skilled receiving as well. He knows how to run a route, knows how to pin people to his back. He's very fluid, catch point, transition into runner. And then you get the stuff the times where he can out sprint you. That's what he's going to try to do because he has those wheels. Mm-hmm. But then the times where it's that's not there, he'll put the shoulder down. And now I'm going to try to get the 3 yards available to me. I really like him, especially, of course, as the receiver, which is exactly what Cincinnati needed. As long as all of his body doesn't betray him, he enormous sleeper. It all comes down to the medicals with him. Will the body hold up?
And with everybody drafting in those FFPC tight end premium rookie drafts this weekend, that's a name that you don't want to forget. For sure. Iowa tight end Erick All, certainly a super athlete as well. And now he gets to catch passes from Joe Burrow. Thor, what's coming down next for the down the pike for you? What are you working on? Are you already looking at 2025 draft stuff?
So first I got to finish out this class. So I have my UDFA class rankings are coming next. I got everything slotted. I have the rankings already done and the tables done. And we're just working on the write-ups right now. That thing will be out on Monday. But we're working on our way down through on that. One of my favorite pieces to do every single year. And then next week with D-Bro, we're going to do our deep dive into the UDFA class. Both talking about my rankings and then D-Bro bringing up his sleepers from the different UDFA situations around the league. And I know that our listeners are sickos. So we're going to serve up to the sickos on the next episode. So I think that one we're recording it Tuesday. It'll probably be out later on Tuesday or also at latest on Wednesday. So those are the next two things. And then I'm going to sleep for a couple of weeks. I think I'm going to go into hibernation. But then, when I wake up, we're hitting the ground running on next season of college football for sure. Including, I finally get my video game back. It's been a decade. I've been sitting here with nothing to do, and I'm not working. Right. I finally, we're going to get the PS5. We're gonna, it's going to be great. The online dynasties, I can't wait.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I know you're looking forward to it. We will look forward to that UDFA show with you and Derek Brown. We'll look forward to everything, all the content you're producing with the undrafted free agents that's coming out at Fantasy Pros. We'll continue to follow you at x.com/ThorKU. Thor, thank you so much for coming on and dropping some knowledge on this rookie class. Really appreciate it. Have a good rest when you get a chance to do it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, brother. Always good talking to you.
Absolutely. Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros. I'm Eric Balkman from the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour coming up. It is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. Alan Seslowsky from Rotowire is going to join me. We're going to talk about some of the rookies we didn't get a chance to talk about with Thor, and we're going to do a mock rookie draft for FFPC Dynasty Rookie Leagues. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere. BSN is where you want to be for the HSFF Hour. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Is Dynasty. And the place to play is myffpc.com. Go to myffpc, use promo code COOP. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. Now is the time to get in there and get set up with a startup draft. Now is the time, now that the rookies and everyone are set, because you can go in and you can start the draft and, you draft your Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases. And now that we know where the rookies are and where they're landing, you get going on that. So you want to try and set a startup draft for this week coming up if you're not involved yet. So go get involved. Use the QR code here or use the promo code that's in the link in the description here and get yourself going on Dynasty so you can really enjoy these players and draft the players you believe in. If you like Michael Penix Jr., you got to play Dynasty because you got to wait for him, but the payoff is big. And same with like Pearsall and Jackson Smith and Jigba and all these guys. Get in and do that. And I'll tell you what, the orphan leagues over there that we've been talking about, those all got bought up. They're actually all sold. People from this show I know took over a bunch of them. So right now, startups is the way to go. That's the way to rock and roll. It is startup season. Startup season and rookie draft season. That's what's up. Get set up at myffpc.com. Use promo code COOP. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more and give you a leg up. No dealing with chasing around your friends and making them pay dues and having your buddy be like, oh, dude, I got to quit the league because I got a dog and I can't pay attention no more and I don't want to do trades. Forget all that. You can play online, MyFFPC, high stakes, low stakes, whatever you want to do with experts. And if somebody leaves the league, it goes in that orphan pool and somebody picks it up. The league has never been disbanded on FFPC.com. That's directly from Eric Balkman over there. Has told me that. So that's what's up. Get set up.
Welcome to hour number 2 of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network tonight. Hey, I want to remind everybody, FFPC Empire Leagues have arrived. Empire Leagues with the FFPC, basically dynasty leagues with a large progressive prize pool that grows annually. It's only awarded once we have a back-to-back winner. When that happens, the back-to-back champion wins that year's prize pool, the Empire prize pool as well, and then the league disbands. Everybody gets their deposit back. We are all happy because we get to start a new Empire League. If you want to join them, join one of them, go to myffpc.com, myffpc.com to play in those Empire Leagues. Thor Nystrom, in case you missed him, he was on the first hour. Really good stuff from him. We got a lot more great stuff coming up here in hour number 2. Joined by one of the rotating hosts of the Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast. You hear him on the Sonic Truth Fantasy Football Podcast with Theo Greminger and Matt Kelly. Sirius XM, he's on. He's doing it all over at Rotowire. He is on the X at Alan Seslowsky. Alan Seslowsky, welcome in, man.
Can I tell you, doing a show with you, Balky, is like going on a Tinder date. And let me explain, right? I mean, I go to your profile, you're nice and clean shaved, you got a suit on. I show up, and it's like, I mean, come on, how many women have you gone out with in your time where you go and it's like, wait a second, you don't look like your foot. Now, first of all, I'm into this. I like the look. But I just want you to know, you do not look like your dating profile picture.
I do need to update that on X for sure. And you are, by the way, you're not the first person to say that. I've had people. I have a local radio show here in Northeast Wisconsin, and we'll have guests come into the studio and they'll see me and they're like, "Oh, where's Balky?" Because this is clearly not him. But it is me. I love my beard. It's been great. It's not itchy. It keeps me warm. It's fantastic.
It reminds me of all the women I looked at in magazines in the 1970s.
Right. Yes. So we're already getting blue. We're getting blue like 2 minutes into it. I love it. This is the good stuff that we're going to get into tonight. So what Alan and I are going to do coming up in hour number 2, we're going to talk again about a lot of the players we didn't get a chance to in the first hour, including the stud receivers, Malik Nabers, Rome Odunze. I also want to get into the quarterbacks too, because I know how passionate you are about Superflex Dynasty leagues. And then I'm going to twist your arm to do this, and I know you don't want to, but what I loved on the last Sonic Truth is you guys did the Superflex Dynasty rookie draft. I want to do a single quarterback rookie mock draft with you, which I know this is like fingernails on the chalkboard.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
I love one QB. It's okay. The other guys that are, like I play a lot of Superflex. That's what people like to play. But when one QB comes around, it's not like when we made the shift to PPR and then someone asked me to be in a quote standard league. That was chalkboard, fingernails on the chalkboard. Right. One QB, it's just a different strategy. That's all it is.
And I think like Superflex has obviously exploded over the last, 6-7 years, or maybe even going back further than that. But I do know a lot of our viewers still play in single quarterback leagues. So really, is it still most? I don't even know this.
I mean, think about all your casual offense. Like, okay, forget the FFPC and the people that are really into it, because that is obviously, all the people that play on Sleeper. When you go just like to the office or the fraternity league, or those are all single quarterback leagues, all the ESPN stuff. So there's a lot of people that are just finding and getting to become more sophisticated by watching shows like this that want to learn, that still do not like the 2 quarterback format. So I would say, my guess is if you took all the fantasy players, it's got to be 75% probably still play single quarterback.
Yeah, I think if you do go all players, it might even actually be a little bit higher than 75 too. I mean, that's actually a good point. Let's talk about Malik Nabers to kick things off. And while I want to look at everything tonight as much as we can from a dynasty rookie perspective, this will be the one redraft or annual league question that we're going to get with Nabers. I don't think there's any question he's a top 2 wide receiver in dynasty rookie drafts. But if we dynasty rookie drafts, but in redraft leagues, take for instance the FFPC best ball tournament, which has the data I'm going by on Fantasy Mojo is all after the NFL draft, because that's when these drafts started. He's wide receiver 17. He's going at the end of the 3rd round. Does that strike you as I'll do the Goldilocks and the 3 bears? Too high, too low, or just right for Malik Nabers there, Alan?
Listen, sometimes when you pay up for an expensive watch or an expensive car, it's not worth the money, but you buy it anyway because that's the price, because that's what you want. If you want Malik Nabers, who's supposed to be the next Justin Jefferson, right? They're already giving him the gold jacket at 20 years old. That's the price. The good news is that a lot of the rookies get pushed up. So if everyone's paying top dollar, then some of the other guys will fall. But to answer in a vacuum, I mean, he's going ahead, Balky, in the FFPC, ahead of guys like Michael Pittman, ahead of Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, even Cooper Kupp, right around there. I mean, those are the decisions you're making in the wide receiver range for the most part. And give me give me those boring veterans. I play fantasy football in a boring way. And you might say, I've heard pushback. Well, you're not going to win an FFPC tournament taking boring guys. Yes, I am. First of all, you got right.
Yes, you are.
Get there first. But yeah, so if Malik Nabers, sure, if he hits his ultimate outcome with Daniel Jones, who, by all accounts, I don't think anybody's predicting Daniel Jones to play 17 games. I think we can safely pencil in Drew Lock for a couple starts if things go sideways. And then, I don't know anybody that loves Drew Lock. So I like Malik Nabers for in the dynasty stuff, but in redraft, I like to spend my picks on proven assets, especially when I'm putting my hard-earned money in best ball tournaments on the FFPC.
I think that's an interesting point about Nabers. And he's like in a total, I don't want to say 180 degree different situation than what Rome Odunze fell into in Chicago. But Nabers is the guy in New York. I mean, there's nobody else that we're excited about there. Chicago, on the other hand, well, they did add DeAndre Swift, who does have some pass catching chops. But just look at the other pass catchers on the perimeter. Keenan Allen is there. DJ Moore is there. You have Cole Kmet, who, say what you will about his talent level, but the dude does produce. Odunze is, to me, drafted to be the number one receiver for Caleb Williams as they grow up in the league together. But when does that happen, Alan? When does he become the Bears' number one receiver with so much other talent there right now?
That's the crazy question, right? Like, we are assuming that this is a situation where he's the number 3 and that he's going to have a slow start and that his price is going to go down. And the cheap dynasty advice is buy him in week 4, right? Right, Balky? It's like buy him when his price drops. And look, the redraft market kind of reflects that. Wide receiver 32-ish, right? So they're in line here. But I'm going to take the optimistic view with him. Keenan Allen, I don't know anyone that loves 32-year-old wide receivers. Now, Keenan Allen, he had a great year last year, right? I mean, he was winning you fantasy weeks. He was like wide receiver 3 before he failed out. He flamed out in the playoffs. And everyone likes DJ Moore. But here's the downside with Rome Odunze is, 1, he has to be good. And 2, Caleb Williams has to be good. I mean, the last time we had this like all-time, generational prospect, it was Trevor Lawrence. And I think, so far we've been disappointed, especially his rookie year. So I don't think that, Caleb, all he has to do is be like a B+, and Rome Odunze will be fine. But there's also the other side of it, which, again, this is why we play fantasy football. What happens if he shoves Keenan Allen out of the way and shoves DJ Moore out of the way, and he has a 4 for 80 and a touchdown in week 1, a 6 for 70 and a touchdown in week 2, and now all of a sudden you're not even going to be able to get him in Dynasty, right? So I think that this is the situation where he's the one in our Dynasty rookie drafts that's falling a little bit. Like he's routinely going pick 8, pick 9 in Superflex, pick 5, 3, 4, 5 in single quarterback, and in wide receiver 32, man. So I'm in on Odunze because I'm not having to pay the elite rookie price.
He is, and I just looked at this up on Fantasy Mojo, in FFPC Dynasty ADP post NFL draft for startups, wide receiver 13 at the 210. It's about a little more than a half, a little bit more than a half round behind Nabers. He's still going about a half round ahead of Brock Bowers, again, tight end premium, and then he's going,
so wide receiver
wide receiver 3, wide receiver. Wide receiver 13 overall.
In Dynasty. Okay, I was looking at you referenced Mojo. That's why I was thinking about,
he's got both of them on there. He's wide receiver 36 in redraft and then wide receiver 13 in Dynasty.
So that's I said 32-ish. That was off top of head. Yeah.
Well, 32-ish is 36 in my opinion. We'll fudge the numbers on that.
Yeah. Right. It's like who you taking above him or below him. And I think it's a fair price. Again, I go back to like, is the sports car worth the money? No, but you got to take some shots here. I do a million Dynasty startups, Walkie, and the startup that I did earlier in the offseason where, rookie picks were available. You play in leagues like that, right? Where you draft the picks, you don't draft the player. And it's like, it never feels like it's worth it to take a rookie pick when like proven veterans on the board, and then the rookies get drafted, and now all you want is these rookie picks, right? So they go up, and now, like, I should have bought when the price was cheaper, and now Rome Odunze, all these guys, I mean, they're top 15 wide receivers. Malik Nabers, wide receiver, 8 in Dynasty before he's even taken a snap.
Getting back to the whole drafting the picks thing, like, to me, that's the pick is always so much more valuable than whatever player gets selected at that pick.
Why?
Right? Because you have the mystery box, right? So like I could trade you the 102. How about this? Dynasty rookie draft, right? I could trade you the 102 and I would get more for you for that pick than I would if I was to trade Malik Nabers to you, right? Because once you assign a name to the pick, it goes, in my opinion, it goes down in value. The 102, the possibilities are endless, Alan.
Yep.
But once you have the player, well, now you got the player.
Well, yeah, and I like people like the unwrapped present, and anything that's open the ready. What do the stores do? They put it in the the damaged bin, right? And so it's the unboxed TV, the floor model of the TV. It's always cheaper, even though it's the same thing. But with also with the pick is that you protect yourself against anything happening to the player, right? So let's say you drafted Malik Nabers, and then he gets an injury and he's out for the season, God forbid, right? But if you draft that pick and then you have you're on the clock at 103 in a single quarterback league, you don't have to take him. You could take Rome Odunze. So it does, like you said, it gives you more fluidity, and also people like to push that virtual button, right? They like to hear the little notification go off. They like to see you've drafted X player. You're right. It's the brand new car thing versus the used car.
Well, and like you talked about the unboxing, like how many unboxing videos were on YouTube over the last 15 years? Like everybody always wants to see that box being open.
What do you think the appeal is with that? Because I
don't know. I don't get it. I'm too old to get it. Like I don't. It was never a thing for me. You remember when the whole what was the NBA like digital?
Oh, you talking about the digital moments?
Yeah, well, like with the where you could.
You could buy a moment, a digital moment.
You could buy it, and they were insane. Like as far as price goes, Top Shot. Thank you, Matt Deutsch, our producer. Tonight. Yeah, it was crazy for a while, and I'm like, I think I'm just too old to understand how cool this is.
Yeah. Now, Top Shot, you kind of knew was a little bit Bernie Madoff-ish, right? I mean, it's like, okay, you want to pay $5 to collect one here and there, $20, $100, but there was people paying thousands and thousands of dollars to, and the common pushback was, right, like why can't I Google that and YouTube that clip? It's
exactly. That's what I didn't understand. But again, this is not my area of expertise. I want to take a quick break from rookies. Let's take a question from the YouTube chat. Mr. Bakes a Lot, actually, what's going on in Pittsburgh? So what do we think of Jalen Warren now that the Steelers declined Najee Harris's fifth-year option? And I'll lump into that Jalen Warren talking about Justin Fields potentially returning kicks in Pittsburgh when they already have Cordero Patterson. Alan, what's going on here?
It's funny because I guess Mr. Bakes is
Mr. Bakes a Lot, yeah.
Mr. Bakes a Lot is thinking like, oh, Jalen Warren season, they don't like Najee Harris. The way I took this, and again, it's just funny how different people see it differently. I'm not telling him he's wrong at all, but I see it as, hey, Najee Harris is like a rental car. You've rented cars, Balky, right? I mean, I don't treat them so well.
We get the insurance on it, and we beat the hell out of them. That's what we do.
So Najee Harris season right now, right? Yes. I mean, I'm taking him in redraft. I mean, Jalen Warren's obviously going to be part of it. He's a good player, and he obviously caps the upside a little bit of Najee Harris. So draft Jalen Warren as you were. He's the guy they're probably going to hold on to for a couple of years. And Najee Harris, man, he's playing for a contract. And he's the Pittsburgh has no incentive to do anything except run with him. So I saw this as boost up for Najee.
And then the Fields thing. I mean, do we put any kind of stock in that? I mean, like certainly that doesn't help for fantasy, but it is a little weird that they were talking about putting him out there. And I think Sigmund Bloom, who is from Football Guys, who's a big Steelers fan, he said that they're going to pick up. They're going to. I don't know if it's an option with Fields or they just re-sign him to some sort of deal or whatever it was. Right. Well, why are you doing that if you're going to have him returning kicks for God's sake?
I mean, who knows, right? That's the craziest thing. Now, if you are Justin Fields, hey, I want to buy cheap. This is the news where you can buy him cheap in Dynasty, right? So I was out. I was in out the once he got traded for the 6th round pick. I was still able to recoup some value for him, but this news is bad. So if you are still going to hang in there, and it went south with you if you hung in there with Trey Lance, right? This is another piece of news where I think now you could even in a super flex 2 quarterback format, Balky, you could probably offer like 2.8, 2.5. You don't want to draft Roman Wilson in your rookie draft. You could probably trade him right now for Justin Fields off of this news. That's what it means.
Mr. Bakesalot also, Najee Harris, is this going to be like a 2022 Josh Jacobs level season? Oh, I don't know if it's going to be that high because he led the league in rushing that year, but I mean, is this a career year for Najee Harris this year?
I mean, he had those a massive amount of receptions his rookie year, so it would be hard to get there, especially with Jalen Warren. He's a good player, man. It's just that, I mean, do you think that Arthur Smith is going to treat Jalen Warren like Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier like for Najee Harris? I think that's a apt comparison. I mean, Najee Harris is a better player supposedly than Tyler Algier, so I think it's going to be a good both usable guys, good 0 RB targets if you want to go tight end, wide receiver, or something like that, but not sexy pick. And I don't think Najee's price goes up, but it'll probably be better than expected. And Jalen Warren, like I said, he'll have these guys will not be top 12 fantasy running backs this year.
Yeah, Harris and Warren are almost going back to back right now. Running back 24, running back 26 in the FFPC best ball tournament at the 712 and the 803.
Which one do you like? You have to pick one. You're on the clock. You need a running back. Who are you picking?
I'm probably taking Harris, but that's because what was the thing you guys were talking about in last Sonic Truth? I draft like a coward because I'm a weak man. I'm a weak man, Ellen. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the guy that has the pedigree, and I'm gonna go with him. Now here's the other thing. That's the way you framed it. Like if I only had one draft and I'm picking one of them, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to be doing, numerous drafts. So I'll probably have, some of both this year.
I don't let people off the hook with, I do a portfolio argument. I make them that this is your most expensive draft because, there are people. Yeah. Everyone knows
Harris. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Let's get back to the rookies here. Jermaine Burton. Is he a fade for us? And like I've heard he's kind of developed into this polarizing player because he could be the heir apparent to T. Higgins when Higgins gets traded or signs elsewhere or what have you. But I also know that there's some off the field stuff that people were concerned about. How do you fall in on Jermaine Burton? Because in rookie drafts, like in dynasty startups, he's not even being drafted because of the short FFPC dynasty benches. Mm-hmm. But when we have rookie drafts kicking off this Saturday, he's going to go, and this could be an interesting player. And then early third round, I want to say.
Yeah, well, Jermaine Burton right now, he goes anywhere. He's got a range in the drafts I've seen, and these are two quarterback ones. He's gone anywhere from the beginning of the third to the end of the third. So I think it's safe to say that beginning of the third and single quarterback. I mean, there's a lot to like here, right? I mean, he was the player where I've only heard people say, "Oh my God, what a steal in the third round," and especially if Tyler Boyd, it looks like he might, sign somewhere else at this point. He's not coming back, so he could play right away. I mean, the thing with Burton is I think everyone agrees that talent-wise, he could have been a top 5 pick in the second round, right? Or a fringy first round. I think that's like the talent level. And he fell for whatever off the field or concerns, but 15 touchdowns in his last 2 years. The guy knows how to find the end zone. Certainly racked up 40 catches in both last 2 years at Alabama. And, it's like he's a good player. I don't know why anyone would fade him at his current draft course. You don't have to, he's going after some of the running backs that might not even see the field. He's going after Miami Dolphins, Jalen Wright. He's going after MarShawn Lloyd. And those guys, again, they're third, they're fourth on their depth chart. Burton could walk into playing time right away. Now, here's the weak argument. In a best ball dynasty, I don't know how many people play in best ball dynasty. I certainly would take the wide receiver there. You don't want those zeros racking up with those backup running backs. But if you're in a set your lineup league, like most of us play in, I can understand that's a little bit tougher decision. Yeah, he's a third round receiver. You could never hear from him, but I like the guys that fall. I used to like the weed guys, Balky, the guys that used to fall down the draft board because they were weed smokers.
Right.
Now it's, I like the off the field problem guys that fall down. They always have the high. Tyreek Hill would be the best example.
Right. Yeah. Because oftentimes that we kind of overrate that when it comes to how these, the other thing too is we're drafting these players after they've already been drafted by their NFL teams. Their NFL teams have said, okay, we either don't think this is an issue at all, or we don't think it's as much of an issue because we're still willing to sink draft capital into these players. So if they're willing to do it, why shouldn't we be willing to invest draft capital in these players in our rookie drafts too?
You just said something so important. We're double counting it if we fade them as well,
right.
If they've already been discounted. Like if Burton was picked in the Keon Coleman slot at pick 33, his costs would be higher, right? So he's already been discounted. I love these. I think that is a beautiful piece of actionable takeaway. Trust what the NFL team is doing. They're incentivized to make them work. And we can go, there's a million players like that. The ultimate one being like Bryce Young, right? Even if you don't like Bryce Young, the quarterback on Carolina, they're going to make this work one way or the other.
Yeah. I think I go back to, and like it doesn't always work out too. I go back a few years ago when the Giants took Kadarius Toney in the first round of the draft. And that surprised a lot of us. I know it surprised me. And in the dynasty leagues I was in, I mean, people just continued to let him slide and let him slide and let him slide. And finally, I'm like looking at like, it's like the early third round. I'm like, this guy went in the first round of the draft. At some point, you have to take a chance. And so I did. Now, it didn't work out, but I think like most of the time, it doesn't usually fall that way where you have a first round receiver that, falls to pick 26 or 27 and it doesn't work out because the investment, Alan, is so small.
Let's stick with this for a second. This is a good one here, Balky. So I would say that Kadarius Toney did work out in this sense. Obviously, he's garbage now. He's not worth anything. But you had first round sell value on Kadarius Toney after he failed. Right now, you chose not you, the proverbial, you chose not to get out. And at any point, you could have taken any second for him after he failed miserably. Then he was traded to the Chiefs. There was someone that was going to give you pick 210, which ended up being Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, whoever it was. So I think a player like, yes, they ultimately failed, but he didn't fail because he still retained value because of that first round draft capital. Like you said, it's like, hey, if you're going to give this guy to me in the third round, at some point I could still get out for more than this cost right here. I think that's another great piece that the FFPC drafters need to think about in their drafts this week.
I mean, just because you fail as a player doesn't necessarily mean you can fail as an asset. I mean, yes, you can do both, but it's possible to not be that great on the field. But in our mind's eye, or what somebody in your league perceives, it could be worthwhile to take advantage of drafting somebody in the third round and flipping them later.
Who do you think that guy? I mean, I've been in a bunch of these drafts already. I mean, who do you think a couple of the guys are that the first round draft capital guys that are falling?
Okay. First round draft capital. That's okay.
You have to have real NFL draft first round capital.
Okay, so let's look at
Pearsall.
Pearsall came to mind. I think that the thing that clouds me with Pearsall is not necessarily that, and we were talking with Thor Nystrom about this in the first hour. The thing that clouds me about him is not necessarily the type of player he is. I think he's a pretty good player. Permar99, by the way, disagrees. Was dumped a ton of stuff into the chat tonight, which we appreciate, Permar. But it's what happens with Ayuk, like what happens with Samuel, right? We know Kittle and McCaffrey are going to be there, but unless one of these guys, is traded, then Pearsall's kind of a roster clogger, right? And you think again, you get onto these short bench leagues in the FFPC. It's like, do you really want to keep, as Thor said, like the number 5 passing option on an offense? Like that gets to be a little bit difficult to do.
That's what it is today, right? Like there was a time where the dynasty community argued that Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs should go ahead of CeeDee Lamb because he was blocked by Amari Cooper. Now, again, I'm just giving you one that turned out right. But I'm just saying is that could happen with Rome Odunze. We talked about him earlier, and that could happen with Ricky Pearsall. You're not having to pay a first-round pick for Ricky Pearsall. He's going in single quarterback 2.2. 2.5 in Superflex, he goes 2.8, 2.10. I mean, he really does drop. So where would his draft cost go if they trade Debo, right? Like it's not about what could happen when you're in that part of the draft. Again, I'll use the running backs that aren't going to see the field. And you're right. The downside is roster clogger. And you're like, oh man, I could have drafted Keon Coleman. What the hell did I just do to my roster? But I'm just thinking,
or running back that sees action,
Yep. So and also Legette, right? Legette's got to be the other one that's going to fall.
So Legette, I mean, I was never a huge, especially in a receiver class like this, I was never a huge Legette guy because I don't trust these 5th-year breakouts. Like it just always comes back to bite me. The other guy, and I'll give you a sort of a dark horse for this situation. What about Xavier Worthy, right? So Xavier Worthy gets drafted at 28 by the Chiefs. Awesome situation. The speed is back in Kansas City. And you have a guy who actually was a pretty pedigreed player at Texas. I mean, even before he ran that 4.2 40 or whatever it was, we were still talking about him as like a second round pick. It's not like this guy was a day 3 guy. He wasn't. He was putting up good numbers for an SEC school. Now, what happens if Worthy is just that, a speed merchant? He's not being utilized enough. Marquise Brown gets targeted quite a bit. Rashee Rice doesn't get suspended until 2025. Well, now all of a sudden, Worthy's like, there could be some buyer's remorse on Worthy. And he could be a guy that like, oh God, why did I pick him here? And then you trade for him or what have you. And if you keep him on your roster, then maybe all of a sudden he ends up being one of those assets that you can trade to. Like, I think that Worthy's kind of it's an eye of the beholder type player.
Yeah, no, Xavier Worthy, I mean, for whatever preconceived notions you had about him, it's when you draft players, sometimes you got to think about how is everyone else going to perceive them. And I don't know anyone that's making the downside case for Xavier Worthy. Like anyone,
not right now. Now,
that's what I'm saying. So like, you're going to be able to at least get your money back with Xavier Worthy. He's the fast wide receiver that's attached to Patrick Mahomes' arm, right? And Andy Reid for the foreseeable future. Now, I thought I read a note that the Chiefs are expecting a half-season suspension of Rashee Rice. I thought I saw an Adam Schefter or a note about that. Now, not that anything's come down, but that was the expectation, that they were looking at pre-appeal a half of a season. So let's just say it's 6 games, right? I mean, 8 and then 6. I think that's pretty safe. The NFL, after the Henry Ruggs tragedy, and now with this thing, they want to start punishing this, similar to what they did with punishing gambling harshly. So I think that you're going to see a serious suspension. This is not a nothing. Now in Dynasty, the cheap advice is going to be buy low, right? But I think that Xavier Worthy, the obstacle of getting on the field right away is now probably removed, right? He's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets. And obviously he's going to take the Marquez Valdes-Scantling deep role as well. So I see what you're saying, the downside case, but that's for any of these guys that aren't in the top 3. I think that Xavier Worthy is a Deshaun Jackson-esque upside pick. I mean, Andy Reid coached Deshaun Jackson, and Deshaun Jackson, remember in redraft in a single quarterback, he was like a perennial 2-3 turn guy. And you're like, okay, I'll live with the 3 catches for 30 yards because I'm getting a 6 for 110 and 2 every few weeks.
I think that's that, and the comp. That's the comp I keep hearing with Deshaun Jackson. And while we think about Deshaun Jackson, at least I thought about him as like, okay, well, he's another deep speed guy that was a weapon. He wasn't a one-trick pony. He wasn't a Devery Henderson, if you will. Like, the dude did other things, and that's why he was picked higher in drafts over and over again, because he was a bona fide receiver, not just a speedy receiver. Steve Smith, his Agent 89 Breakdown podcast, James Palmer from the NFL Network was on, and he said the quote about Rashee Rice: he's going to be suspended. Let's just put it out there. They're expecting half a season at least.
There it is.
So that's what he was. This is the first time I'm seeing this, which is crazy.
I broke some news to you then.
You did. You absolutely did. I'm just trying to find out when I wonder if
it was like 2 days ago. It was
2 days ago. Okay.
Yeah. And by the other Worthy comp that I like is Brandon Cooks, because it doesn't have to be Deshaun Jackson. So Brandon Cooks was a good player. You weren't like, oh my God, give me Brandon Cooks. But in the real NFL, how many times was Brandon Cooks traded for a first-round pick? Did he set the record being traded like 3 times for a first-round pick?
It was insane. Yeah. I don't know what it was, but I do remember Cooks was he was an apartment liver. He was never a home buyer.
I like that. He's a renter. That's funny.
Yeah,
that's really funny.
He's always a renter.
And in fantasy, you were always happy to have Brandon Cooks on your roster, right? I mean, he's going to make the cut line in FFPC Dynasty. If Xavier Worthy, let me ask you this. Pretend this is one of those X polls.
Yeah. If
Xavier Worthy has Brandon Cooks' career, are you happy with the pick?
If I take him in a rookie draft, yes, totally. 100%.
Well, there's your answer.
I mean, because you think of it too, like a lot of these receivers that get taken in the late first round, I think Matt Kelly, the Podfather, was talking about this. Like, the bust rate's kind of high on those players. So if I'm like, anytime I'm taking a receiver at the back end of my own rookie drafts, and I'm taking a receiver that goes at the back end of the first round, I'm already a little bit nervous. Like, you're playing roulette a little bit with that. And if he turns out to have Brandon Cooks' career, yes, absolutely. You're totally, because number one, he's probably helped you in several years. Number two, he wasn't a bust, which is the biggest thing you don't want in your rookie draft. Like, you just don't want your pick. He didn't suck. Yeah,
Right.
just don't suck if you're a first-round pick. Let's do this. I don't think we're going to get into the quarterbacks. That's okay. We did have a question about Ben Sinnott, and I can't remember who posted it in the YouTube earlier. But how do you feel about him? Again, FFPC has the tight end premium and not the super steroid premium 175. It's just the normal, still yoked up but not roided up 1.5 per catch PPR. How do you feel about Ben Sinnott in Washington in those formats?
Is it funny that like 1.5 premium is not enough to get these maniacs excited anymore? Right? Like FFPC is going to like, oh God, are we really going to go to 175? They're not going to do it, but it's funny. It's funny because in dynasty startups that I do, 1.5 doesn't really move the needle like as far as like how they get drafted. It's when it's 1.7520 that you start seeing them pushed up. I mean, we have to respect the draft capital, right? The second round pick. Now I've heard quotes of Adam Peters, the GM on the Commanders, and who used to be over at San Francisco, saying, "Hey, this is our George Kittle." Now, again, it's GM speak, but that's a cool quote, right? That's one that's going to stick with me because at least he's going to want to make it work. He made this pick. No one's going to give the Commanders credit for picking Jaden Daniels. That was like the most obvious pick. Sure, you could have picked Drake May. There was this nonsense about picking JJ McCarthy, but it's like the Bears do not get an A grade for drafting Caleb Williams. It was the obvious pick. So this is the pick where the first pick where Adam Peters is going to be judged on. They're going to want to make this work. And I mean, he's a pass-catching tight end. Once again, Zach Ertz is there. How many rookie tight ends has Zach Ertz blocked in his day? He's got Dallas Goedert, Trey McBride, maybe Ben Sinnott, right? I like where Ben Sinnott's been going in these drafts. He's going a little higher than I thought he would in the rookie drafts in the Superflex world, middle, end of the second round, and I expect that to be similar in rookie drafts for the FFPC, given the tight end premium format and how much it's so hard because you can't trade for these guys that make it different. No. So yeah, I've seen him ranked as high in the top 10. That's a little aggressive for me. I think though, taking him over some of the guys that are true crapshoots in the 15, 18 range is very reasonable.
I think Sinnott's going to be an interesting guy to not only for rookie drafts, but just watching him over the course of the season to see how he does in that offense with Jaden Daniels. Now they have a real quarterback in Washington. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. When we come back, you and I are going to do a single quarterback rookie mock draft. I'm going to hope that I think we can get through 2 rounds. I'm going to let you have the first pick. You're going to have basically the odds, right? And I'll have the evens. We're going to do it just like how you did on the Sonic Truth, right? We're drafting 12 different teams, right? And so it's not going to be this nonsense of like, I got
team building. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
it's as if every time I pick, it's my first pick I've ever made.
Exactly. That's totally true. Well, no, because in the second round, we'll do it like, okay, or do you want, I should ask you.
Be like, I traded away my first rounder. It's a new manager on the clock because this way you get the best player available because I don't want to be prohibited from taking a running back just because I took one in the first round or whatever.
Point. Let's do it that way. That's excellent. This is why I have geniuses like you on the show. Alan Seslowsky from Rotowire.com at Alan Seslowsky on the X. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, rookie mock draft fever. It's going to be great. You're watching the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network.
Is Dynasty. And the place to play is myffpc.com. Go to myffpc, use promo code COOP. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. Now is the time to get in there and get set up with a startup draft. Now is the time, now that the rookies and everyone are set, because you can go in and you can start the draft and, you draft your Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases. And now that we know where the rookies are and where they're landing, you get going on that. So you want to try and set a startup draft for this week coming up if you're not involved yet. So go get involved. Use the QR code here or use the promo code that's in the link in the description here and get yourself going on Dynasty so you can really enjoy these players and draft the players you believe in. If you like Michael Penix Jr., you got to play Dynasty because you got to wait for him, but the payoff is big. And same with like Pearsall and Jackson Smith and Jigba and all these guys. Get in and do that. And I'll tell you what, the orphan leagues over there that we've been talking about, those all got bought up. They're actually all sold. People from this show I know took over a bunch of them. So right now, startups is the way to go. That's the way to rock and roll. It is startup season. Startup season and rookie draft season. That's what's up. Get set up at myffpc.com. Use promo code COOP. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more and give you a leg up. No dealing with chasing around your friends and making them pay dues and having your buddy be like, oh, dude, I got to quit the league because I got a dog and I can't pay attention no more and I don't want to do trades. Forget all that. You can play online, my FFPC, high stakes, low stakes, whatever you want to do with experts. And if somebody leaves the league, it goes in that orphan pool and somebody picks it up. The league has never been disbanded on FFPC.com. That's directly from Eric Balkman over there has told me that. So that's what's up. Get set up.
20 minutes left in the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show for May 2nd, 2024. Just enough time to sneak in a rookie mock draft. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC. He's Alan Seslowsky from Rotowire. So listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a single quarterback rookie mock draft. Alan and I will trade off picks. He will be the odds. I will be the evens. And we are drafting for 12 separate teams as if each pick is the first pick that team has drafted for the draft. So literally, we should be getting every single, like the best player is going at every single slot. So we'll kick things off with Mr. Seslowsky, who has the 101 in the rookie draft. Go ahead with your pick, young man.
I expect every single quarterback league to start off with Marvin Harrison. No analysis needed there, Balky.
So, you make it seem like it's a slam dunk. Now, I'm going to take Malik Nabers here at the 2. Why is it such a slam dunk for Harrison over Nabers?
It's just that he ended up in the better draft capital, right? Well, I mean, if you want Malik Nabers, it's 2 spots, right?
Right.
But yeah, he's with the better quarterback. You're going to get the better immediate production with Kyler Murray, and I think that means something. At the end of the first 4 weeks, if Marvin Harrison is in a top 10 wide receiver, top 12 receiver, and Malik Nabers is, let's just say, off to a little bit of a slower start with Daniel Jones, New York, and with the New York Giants, you're going to see people will say preach patience, but dynasty players think they're long-term thinkers. They're really just redraft thinkers. Now, I expect to see when I'm going to be following the ADP about at least 90 to 95% of those drafts to have Marv.
This is a 1 quarterback league, Dom. Thank you for asking. 1 quarterback league. Now, or start 1 quarterback league, I should say. The quarterback thing, that is a great point to bring up. I had not considered that. Kyler Murray versus Daniel Jones / Carson Beck or somebody or whoever they would draft next year.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. So you go Harrison, I go Nabers, you're on the clock at the 103.
Yeah, and this is the FFPC premium format,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
I think I'm ready to take Brock Bowers here. I do not think it's a bad landing spot at all. I mean, what was a good landing spot, Balky? The Jets, right? Aaron Rodgers, he hasn't made a lot of tight ends famous
right.
in fantasy. So I think that, Brock Bowers, I mean, if you were high on him before, and it's so hard, you can't trade for the tight ends in FFPC unless you're willing to pay the iron price. So I'm going to take Brock Bowers and get him right here.
Brock Bowers would have been my pick at the 104 too. I think that's a great selection. So I will take the last of the big 3 receivers here. I'm going to grab Rome Odunze. I understand that production may be sporadic in year 1, but I also understand Keenan Allen is not a cyborg and Father Time is undefeated. And Odunze eventually will be the guy in Chicago. So I grab him at the 104. 3 receivers and a tight end off the board. You're back on the clock at the 105.
Yeah, I don't understand why Jonathan Brooks is not being treated like the RB1 he is in every single in every class. This is similar to the Breece Hall draft capital. He's going to walk in. Chuba Hubbard had 20 carries or more from the bye on. I expect that to be handed to Jonathan Brooks the minute he's healthy. And by all accounts, he's going to be ready for training camp.
I am going to so you're taking Brooks at the 105.
Yep.
I am going to go a little bit off schedule here. I know people are saying you got to take Caleb Williams at some point. Yes, at some point you do. That's not the point for me. Xavier Worthy, I think, is tempting here with Kansas City in playing in that offense. I'm going to go with a guy that I liked in the pre-draft process. I love now his landing spot should mean a lot of catches this year, and it's Ladd McConkey, a guy who had a really good collegiate career and a guy who I think steps in a really good spot here in Los Angeles to catch a ton of balls like right away. And just because and by the way, I think it happens in 2024, which means I think it happens in 25 and 26 and 27. I think he's just going to be a PPR monster there. So I take Ladd McConkey. Might not be the sexiest pick, but we don't care about sexy picks. We care about points and he's going to put up a lot of them for fantasy teams.
What I love about your pick there, Balky, is that even if they add an alpha wide receiver next year, Ladd McConkey is still going to be your perennial 90 catch, 950 yards, and 8 touchdowns every year. I mean, and that's the floor. So I love that pick. Now, you mentioned about when do we take Caleb. In a single quarterback league, I'm not taking Caleb. I'm taking Jaden Daniels because I'm only shooting for mega nuclear upside. I'm going to take him here. Now, if I have a quarterback on my roster, Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, one of those every week starters, I'm not going to do it because, forget it. You can only start one of them in a single quarterback. But I would then go on to a position player. But we're just playing this team neutral. Right now, I'm going to take Jaden Daniels because I want to go for the nuclear upside, because if I fail, there's always a Matthew Stafford or Baker Mayfield on the waiver wire, whereas in Superflex, floor is a little bit more important.
Do you view Jaden Daniels as having significantly more upside than Caleb Williams?
With the rushing, yes, in fantasy football. I mean, we're talking about the RG3 rookie season if all fires right.
Okay, so you take Jaden Daniels at the 107. Now we're having some fun. I am going to go with I can't do it. I'm going to go with, and I'm a big Florida State fan, so say, Keon Coleman. No, not Keon Coleman. I'm going to go with Trey Benson here. Trey Benson in Arizona. Now, Trey Benson is a player that a lot of people, Thor Nystrom included, said that he was the number one running back in this class. Benson is a player who is a good pass blocker. Didn't get a lot of credit for that because he's talented rushing the ball and he catches the ball as well. I don't know how James Conner has elongated his career this much so far, but he has. It's got to be coming close to midnight for him. And then Benson should be the lead back. And what's probably still going to be a committee, but he's going to get a lot of opportunities. Trey Benson, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, that's an offense you want to be in business with. Trey Benson's my pick at 108.
Yeah, I mean, there's two factions right now. There's the Trey Benson RB1, Jonathan Brooks RB1. I'm excited to see it play out. You know what the right answer could be? Both.
Could be. Yeah,
no, I really like it. I'm going to break your heart a little bit here. It is Keon Coleman. I was asked on a podcast, Keon Coleman versus Ladd McConkey, and it seems like the market is agreeing with you. Ladd McConkey is the guy to take here. But if you just, the argument against that and why I would take Keon Coleman is which one of those two guys could have the 15 touchdown season, so that's the Keon Coleman argument. I think you're smart to take McConkey because of the PPR upside, but in this specific draft where we are right now, we're at pick 9, right?
Yeah, you're taking Keon Coleman at 9.
I am.
All right, so at the 10, it's certainly not my favorite pick, but I think you actually pointed us out. I could be wrong. Maybe it wasn't you, but said if you have a portfolio, if you're a volume drafter, you'd be foolish not to be in business with players that you don't necessarily like, but you do want to get some shares of. That's Xavier Worthy for me. Totally. I don't know if I'm gonna be drafting him a ton, but I should be drafting him here and there. So in this dynasty format, too good to pass up here. I think this is the spot you want to grab Xavier Worthy at the 110. Yeah,
that's who I would have taken if you didn't. And I think that right now, regardless of who you have, you're on the clock and you see Caleb Williams sitting there. You have to take him here. And again, the only exception would be if you have Josh Allen and or Patrick Mahomes on your team and you're just like, man, I'd rather just take a position player. But even then, it's like, take him, see if you can make a trade. Caleb does have that upside to be. We're talking about him in the elite tier next year. So I acknowledge that, and I would take him right here.
So we're at the 112 here. I'm probably going to go with a receiver, and I think it's going to be Brian Thomas for the reason of I look at some of these other receivers that are still out there, and I see a lot of blockages to being the number one receiver for their team. Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville's got Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis, but to me, Thomas is good enough where I could see him becoming the alpha on that team. Adonai Mitchell, I don't know in Indianapolis because of Michael Pittman. Ricky Pearsall, he's got two guys to contend with in San Francisco. So I'll take at the 112 here. I'm going to go with Brian Thomas.
Yeah, when we get to Adonai Mitchell, I'm so curious of your take there because there's people that are sticking in there with him, and it makes me nervous. I'm not like, what an idiot. You still want him in the first round of your drafts. Like, I see the upside too. It's so easy to look back. You know what? I'm going to take Adonai Mitchell here.
There you go.
I'm going to take him here. And because it's just so easy to look back a year from now, and we said, man, that was DK Metcalf. That was A.J. Brown, who went in the second round of the real NFL draft. and we let them slip by. Adonai Mitchell, I acknowledge that it's a very lonely bare floor, but the upside, man, again, it's who of these guys can have the 15 touchdown season? I think Adonai Mitchell is probably one of them. And then the other argument is that they're going to be run heavy. Maybe with Adonai Mitchell, they're forced to throw a little bit more.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that too. The 202 pick here. There's a few quarterbacks out there. There's a couple of receivers. Again, I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to take a player that should see significant return on his draft value in Blake Corum, who is a Los Angeles Ram.
That's who I was thinking about. Yeah.
Okay, so Corum goes, and this is the argument, or not the argument, but this is the conundrum that people were facing, whether you're drafting before the NFL draft or if you already had Kyron Williams on your dynasty team. What do you do with them? What's the proper way to handle that asset? Well, he's still on the team. We know the team loves him, but they also apparently love Blake Corum, drafting him in the 3rd round. So I think there's something there. I think he maybe never develops into the 1A or maybe the solely 1, but even 1B on a team like that is going to give you some spike weeks, and he's going to give you some weeks where Kyron Williams can't go, and you know that Corum is going to have to carry a heavy load. So I like rolling the dice with Blake Corum at the 202.
Yeah, Sean McVay made a Royce Freeman startable last year.
Right,
Let's keep that in mind, right? Yeah, I'm not going to let Xavier Legette go much further than this. Again, do I love him? No, but I'm respecting the 1st-round draft capital here and the immediate opportunity.
I am going to do the same thing, but with Ricky Pearsall here. And now we'll take Ricky Pearsall off the board at the 204. Again, not that I'm like this Sonic Truth super fan. I mean, I am, but
I'm a fan. I'm a bulky super fan.
I know you well, okay, so I'll be a super fan, but the last episode I was listening to, I think it was you that was talking about, like, you take Ricky Pearsall here at the 204. Well, what happens if Ayuk is gone? If Samuel's gone?
He's 110. He's 1.9.
Yeah, exactly. So you're getting a half round of value here. That hung with me. That's why I'm going to take Ricky Pearsall here.
Right. I mean, it's there. It's not like you have to project some 3rd-round guy that, like, they are going to proactively shove him into the lineup. Just in the interest of time, I'll make the pick quick. Complete upside nonsense. Actually, you know what? No, forget it. I'm taking Roman Wilson. Steelers know a thing or two about drafting guys not in round 1 that are at the wide receiver position.
Roman Wilson going at the 205 tonight. Roman Wilson, he of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I have the opportunity to take, I don't like my choices at receiver here. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with MarShawn Lloyd.
Yeah.
MarShawn Lloyd is a player that I don't, Thor and I were talking about this earlier. I don't necessarily think he has a Bafo 2024 season, but if Jacobs is not great, the Packers can get out of this deal after 2024. And all of a sudden Lloyd is looking at worst as a 1B in that running game with Jordan Love and that, pretty prolific Packers offense, at least down the stretch last year. So you can get him at the 206. Yeah, let him marinate. We'll see what happens this year, but MarShawn Lloyd will go at the 206 for me.
And anytime they try to give the ball to A.J. Dillon, it failed. So maybe he at least gets Dillon's role right away. So I'm going to stick with the running back situation here. I'm going to take Jalen Wright.
Yep.
Not, again, thinking that he is the Raheem Mostert replacement next year.
Boy. Now I know what picks I need to trade in my rookie draft, because now I know what I don't like, and it's after the 207.
Think out loud though. Who are you looking at? Think out loud for people.
Well, I mean, okay, so you obviously have the quarterbacks here. Drake May and JJ McCarthy are still out there. Running back, it's a pretty big drop off, and I don't like these day 3 running back. I mean, like Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, which I know we had a question in the YouTube chat about him. Why are the Jets burying him? Well, I mean, it's one of those things that as I saw more Braylon Allen being in Wisconsin, kind of the less I liked about him at the next level.
You're in Receiverville right now, or quarterback world.
Yeah, it's I guess I'm going. The thing is, here's the thing.
Come on, Bulky, you're not buying a condo for Christ's sake. Just make a pick.
I know. I'm going to make a pick here. The NFL draft capital would say, "Oh, you're going to take Jalen Polk here," but I just don't like Jalen Polk.
Don't take him.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with Troy Franklin, if for no other reason that he got reunited with his collegiate quarterback from Oregon.
The anti-draft capital man.
Well, yeah, and I think Theo has poisoned my mind of because pre-draft it's like Troy Franklin, and then and then the NFL draft happened. It's like, Troy Franklin, what happened? So
Akeem Butler, he's Akeem Butler. No, but I think it's reason. Like, the reason you highlighted about the reuniting and they cleaned out Jerry Jeudy. There's a path for him. I really do like that there. If I'm in the middle of the second round, I want Drake May. My colleague over at Rotowire, Mario Puig, says that Drake May is even if he doesn't have anyone to pass to, if you don't believe in the pass catchers, he can still rush for 400 or 500 yards this year. He's going to be a proactive runner. So, I think I don't think the market is acknowledging that Drake May has rushing upside. It's a great pick not for me, for anyone that wants to take him in the middle of the second round.
Mile High Luke called me out on how did you not take Jermaine Burton here? He's so much better than Trey Franklin. Well, when you have Alan Seslowsky poking you for a pick, then you have to make a decision on the clock. I will not let that mistake fester. So here's where I'll take Jermaine Burton and bet on. Hopefully he's a top 2 receiver in Cincinnati. Probably never going to be an alpha number 1 receiver, but that's okay. There's still space on him for space on my rookie team for him. So I was one of the 210.
I was one of those OTC zealots on the clock in your draft. Like, come on, OTC, bulky OTC. Right, yeah. You see all those guys in the chat. Yeah, I'm up here, and I mean, it is. This is Ben Sinnott world, right? He's not off so
he's available.
Yeah, I think it's actually a couple spots lower than he should go in this format. I think we forgot about him, or I don't know if I forgot about him, but this is right around where I would take him, even in a super flex draft and in single quarterback. I expect him to go at the 205.
I was talking with one of my friends on NFL draft night, and he's won a lot of money playing in the FFPC. He won like $260,000 last year alone. And he was adamant that you do not trade up for a quarterback unless you plan on starting him week 1. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe to that theory. This guy's won a whole lot more money than I have. And I'm going to take J.J. McCarthy with the final pick here of our little 2-round mock draft for the reason of if I am wrong, and maybe even if I'm right, it doesn't really matter. McCarthy should have Jefferson. He should have Addison. He should have Hawkinson. He's going to have Aaron Jones. And obviously Minnesota could add a running back too. Maybe not this year, but next year as well if they move on from Jones. He is being set up to not to the level that Chicago has set up Caleb Williams, but he's being set up with a lot of weapons as long as they take care of Jefferson. And if I can get him 1 pick prior to the 3rd round, then I'll take him as my backup quarterback. Maybe a 3rd quarterback here and just, again, let him marinate, let him figure it out, and then I could start counting on him in 2025.
I love the pick. I mean, it's not going to – Justin Jefferson will not let him fail.
Yeah, that's the plan, right? Yeah. That's the plan. And I was talking with somebody else, Nelson Verbit from Dynasty Depot. Yep. We were talking, and I said, hey, are you concerned with Darnold or a rookie quarterback? He's like, no. Jefferson, they're going to figure out ways to get him the ball. He's going to blow up. Don't worry about Jefferson this year. I'm like, okay, I won't worry about him. Yep. You saw the scroll on the bottom, viewers, of our draft. Just to real quickly go through it again. The first round went Harrison, Nabers, Bowers, Odunze, Brooks, McConkey, Daniels, Benson, Coleman, Worthy, Caleb Williams, Brian Thomas. And then the second round, we had Mitchell, Corum, Legette, Pearsall, Roman Wilson, MarShawn Lloyd, then Jalen Wright, Troy Franklin, and May, Burton, Sinnott, and McCarthy wrap up the 2-round mock draft. This is a lot of fun. I know you've done a zillion of these already, but this is fun for me because I haven't done a zillion of them. Well, and this was fun. It's always fun to do it on air too.
Yeah, it's helpful to anyone watching because though ADP is the wild, wild west right now, right? Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of drafts, but not enough. If you've done a lot of drafts, like I've done a lot, there's been 7 drafts. I still get a little nervous picking at 206, 208. I want to see what everyone's picking. I'm watching everyone's content right now, Balky, trying to see where are the people that are making content picking. So I think this will be helpful to someone whether they're going to do what we do or not do what we do.
Alan, we have to sign off here shortly, but before we do, tell the viewers where we can get more of your content that you're producing.
Yeah, everything I put over at Alan Seslowsky on Twitter or on the Rotowire YouTube page. And that's the best way. And then when the summer kicks in again, we'll be on SiriusXM Radio. But yeah, the Rotowire YouTube page is where I hang out. It's where I'm found.
That is where he's found, at Alan Seslowsky on the X. Alan, thank you. This is a lot of fun. We're going to do this again sometime. Man.
Totally. I enjoy you, boy. And by the way, you do a fantastic job hosting the show. It's very impressive. I have to admit. Yep.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I want to thank Alan. I want to thank Thor Nystrom and our producer, Matt Deutsch. Next week, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday, Bleacher Report's Gary Davenport will join me. Check out myffpc.com, the Fantasy Pros Championship, the Best Ball Tournament, the Superflex Best Ball Tournament, and, of course, those Empire Leagues and Dynasty Startups. Enjoy your FFPC rookie drafts beginning on Saturday. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk with you again next week.